Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The UE's Vengeance was Earth's newest space cruiser. It was big, fast, and deadly. Jake had been in space for 3 years now, patrolling the empty regions between star systems. The bridge was quiet that morning. His crew worked at their stations, checking systems and watching for trouble. Jake sipped his coffee and looked out at the stars. Space was beautiful, but it could be dangerous too. And the message came. Lisa Parker, his communications officer, suddenly sat up straight. Her face went pale as she listened to something through her headset. She looked up at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said. Jake walked over to her station. "What is it?" "It's a distress call, sir. But it's not from any human ship." Lisa's hands shook as she worked her controls. "It's from aliens." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humanity had made contact with alien species 5 years ago, but they were still new to the galaxy. Most aliens saw humans as young and violent. They did not trust Earth very much. "Put it on the main speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge fell silent, and a voice came through the speakers. It was clearly not human. The voice was high and musical, but filled with fear and pain. Double quotes, please. Anyone who receives this message. We are the Zelari of the Kepler 442 system. Our world burns. The Korthax Empire has come to our home. They kill our children. They take our people as slaves. We know we are nothing to the galaxy's great powers, but if there is mercy left in the universe, if anyone can hear this ... please help us. The message continued for several minutes. The alien voice described terrible things. Cities on fire, families torn apart, people dying in the streets. The Zelari were peaceful beings. They had no weapons, no armies. They were scholars and artists, not warriors. When the message ended, the bridge stayed quiet for a long time. Jake could hear his crew breathing. Some of them had tears in their eyes. How long did it take for this message to reach us? Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments. 3 months, sir. It traveled a very long way. Jake's jaw tightened. 3 months. That message was 3 months old. If the Zelari were still alive, they had been suffering for a very long time. Where is the Kepler 442 system? He asked his navigator. Lieutenant Ben Torres looked at his star charts. It's about 2 weeks away if we push the engines hard, sir. Jake looked around at his crew. They all watched him, waiting for his decision. He knew what they wanted him to do. He wanted to do it too. But Jake also knew the rules. Earth was still new to the galaxy. The Galactic Council did not trust humans. They said humans were too violent, too dangerous. Earth ships were only allowed to patrol certain areas of space. They were not supposed to start fights with other species. The Korthax Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. They had been expanding for decades, taking over weaker species. They had huge fleets and strong armies. The Galactic Council knew about them, but they never did anything to stop them. They just sent diplomatic messages and made protests. Jake thought about the voice in the message, the fear and pain in it. He thought about children dying while their parents watched. He thought about families being torn apart. Sir? Lisa asked quietly. What do we do? Jake made his decision. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we received a distress call from the Zelari. Tell them we're going to help. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks, looked worried. Sir, we're not authorized for military action outside our sector. If we attack the Korthax, it could start a war. Jake turned to face his crew. The Korthax are already at war. They're at war with innocent people who can't fight back. That's not war, that's murder. Ryan nodded slowly. What if Earth Command orders us to stay away? Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll have communication problems. Sometimes messages get lost. In space, the crew looked at each other. They all knew what their captain was really saying. They were going to help the Zalari, whether Earth Command approved or not. All right, people, Jake said. Ben, set course for the Kepler 442 system. Maximum speed. Lisa, send that message to Earth Command, but don't wait for a reply. Ryan, start preparing the weapon systems. We're going into a fight. The crew moved quickly to follow his orders. The Vengeance's engines roared to life. The ship turned toward the distant star system, with the Zalari waited for help that might never come. Jake stood at the center of the bridge, watching the stars streak past as they entered hyperspace. He thought about what they were doing. They were one ship against an entire empire. The smart thing would be to wait for backup, or to let the Galactic Council handle it. But Jake had grown up on Earth. He knew that sometimes the right thing to do was not the smart thing to do. Sometimes you had to fight even when you were outnumbered. Sometimes you had to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. The Zalari had asked for mercy. They had asked for help. Jake and his crew were going to give it to them. No matter what the cost, the hunt was on. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office at Terra Station, Earth's biggest military base in space. She was reading reports when the message from Captain Morrison arrived. Kate had been a soldier for 30 years. She had fought in Earth's early wars among the stars. She knew the look in a soldier's eyes when they had made up their mind about something. Kate called her staff into the meeting room. General Paul Martinez was her second in command. He was a tough man who had led troops in many battles. Commander Helen Davis ran the intelligence division. She knew more about alien species than almost anyone on Earth. Morrison is going to the Kepler 442 system, Kate told them. He's going to fight the Korthax Empire. Paul looked at the star charts on the wall. One ship against an entire empire? That's suicide. Maybe, Kate said, but he's going anyway. The question is whether we let him go alone. Helen pulled up files on her computer. The Korthax Empire has been expanding for 50 years. They have over 200 warships. They specialize in attacking weaker species and taking them as slaves. Kate nodded. And what does the Galactic Council do about it? They send diplomatic protests, Helen said with disgust. They make speeches about peace and justice, but they never actually do anything. Paul slammed his fist on the table. Because most of the Council species evolved on easy worlds, they never had to fight for survival like we did. They don't understand what it means to be a predator. Kate stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Earth in the distance. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space, but Kate knew better. Earth was a death world. It had created the human race through millions of years of struggle and violence. Most alien species came from worlds where life was easy. They had never faced the challenges that made humans strong. They had never learned to fight like humans. Could fight. The Zalari are a peaceful species, Helen said. They're artists and scientists. They've never hurt anyone. The Korthax are wiping them out just because they can. Kate made her decision. Send orders to the Second Fleet. I want Captain Amy Turner on the Retribution, Commander Steve Davis on the Warhawk, and Captain Nick Rodriguez on the Thunderstrike. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure. Paul raised his eyebrows. Kate, if we attack the Korthax Empire, it could start a galactic war. Good, Kate said. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that there are consequences for butchering innocent people. Within 2 hours, Earth's most powerful warships were leaving their bases. The Retribution was a heavy cruiser armed with nuclear weapons and kinetic cannons. The Warhawk was a fast attack ship designed for hit-and-run tactics. The Thunderstrike was a fortress in space, covered in armor and bristling with guns. Each ship carried Marines who had trained in Earth's harshest environments. These soldiers had learned to fight in deserts, jungles, mountains, and frozen wastelands. They had been shaped by a world that tried to kill them every day. Captain Amy Turner commanded the Retribution. She was a small woman with steel-gray eyes and scars on her hands from old battles. She had grown up in the Australian outback, where everything was poisonous and the sun could kill you. "All hands, this is the captain," Amy announced over the ship's speakers. "We're heading to the Kepler 442 system to help a species called the Zalari. They're being attacked by the Korthax Empire. The Korthax think they can murder innocent people without consequences. We're going to show them they're wrong." Commander Steve Davis ran the Warhawk. He was a former fighter pilot who had served in Earth's asteroid wars. He knew how to make his ship dance through space like a deadly butterfly. "Listen up, crew," Steve told his people. "We're going up against an empire that's been conquering worlds for decades. They think they're the apex predators in this galaxy. Time to show them what real predators look like." Captain Nick Rodriguez commanded the Thunderstrike. He was a big man with gentle eyes and hands that could crush steel. He had served on Earth's most dangerous frontiers, protecting human colonies from pirates and raiders. "We're soldiers," Nick told his crew. "We swore an oath to protect the innocent. It doesn't matter if those innocents are human or alien. Evil is evil, and we're going to stop it." The human fleet burned through space toward the Kepler 442 system. Behind them, Terra Station buzzed with activity. More ships were being prepared. More Marines were being loaded onto transports. Earth was mobilizing for war. In her office, Admiral Sullivan received angry messages from the Galactic Council. They demanded to know why Earth ships were moving without authorization. They threatened sanctions and diplomatic consequences. Kate deleted the messages without reading them all. She had more important things to worry about. Her ships were racing toward a battle that would determine the fate of an entire species. Colonel Tony Williams commanded the Marines aboard the Retribution. He was a veteran of a dozen battles, a man who had learned to fight in Earth's urban wars. He gathered his troops in the ship's main bay. "Marines," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "We're going to a world where an entire species is being wiped out. The Korthax Empire thinks they can commit genocide without anyone stopping them. They're about to learn that they're wrong." The Marines listened carefully. They came from all over Earth. Some had grown up in the slums of megacities. Others had been raised on frontier worlds where life was cheap and violence was common. All of them had been forged by hardship into perfect weapons. "The Korthax have been expanding for decades," Tony continued. "They've conquered dozens of worlds. They think they're unstoppable because they've never faced real opposition. They've never fought people who grew up on a world that tried to kill them every day." A young Marine raised her hand. "Sir, what if we're outnumbered?" Tony smiled grimly. "Then we'll make them pay for every inch. We're not just representing Earth in this fight. We are representing every species that's too weak to defend itself. We're showing the galaxy that there are still people willing to fight for what's right." The human fleet pushed deeper into space. Behind them, Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock to build more ships. The planet's military academies graduated new officers in record time. Earth was preparing for the possibility that this rescue mission could turn into a full-scale war, but none of that mattered to the crews racing toward the Kepler 442 system. They had heard the desperate plea of the Zalari. They had made their choice. They were going to answer that call for help, no matter what the cost. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened innocent while Earth's children were watching. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw made their blood run cold. The Zelari homeworld was burning. Huge Korthax ships surrounded the planet like hungry wolves. Their guns fired down at the surface, destroying cities and killing millions. Smaller ships flew back and forth, carrying prisoners to massive slave vessels. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance. His hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. This was not war. This was slaughter. "My God," whispered Lisa Parker from her communication station. "How many people are they killing?" Jake forced himself to stay calm. "Lisa, try to contact any Zelari survivors. Let them know help has arrived." On the other human ships, the crews watched in horror. Captain Amy Turner of the Retribution had fought in many battles, but she had never seen anything so brutal. The Korthax were not just conquering the Zelari. They were wiping them out for fun. "All ships, this is Morrison." Jake's voice came over the communication system. "We're going in. Target the ships attacking the planet first. Show these butchers what happens when they pick on innocent people." The Korthax fleet commander was Warlord Thax. He was a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like armor. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. When his sensors showed the human ships approaching, he laughed. "Humans?" he said to his officers. "These primitive mammals think they can challenge the might of the Korthax Empire? Destroy them. Quickly, so we can get back to our work." Thax had no idea what he was about to face. The Korthax had fought many species, but they had never fought humans. They had never faced creatures that came from a world where everything tried to kill them. Human ships moved like nothing the Korthax had ever seen. They did not fly in straight lines or follow the standard rules of space combat. Instead, they moved like a pack of wolves hunting together. The Vengeance dove straight at a Korthax cruiser. The alien ship fired its weapons, but Jake's ship twisted, away from the shots like a dancer. Then the Vengeance fired back. Its kinetic cannons sent solid metal rounds traveling at incredible speed. The shots punched through the Korthax ship's shields and tore huge holes in its hull. The alien cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Debris rained down on the planet below. "First blood to us," Jake said grimly. "But we're just getting started." Captain Amy Turner brought the Retribution into the fight. Her ship was bigger than the Vengeance, armed with nuclear missiles and heavy guns. She picked her target carefully, a Korthax ship that was bombing a Zelari city. "Fire all weapons," Amy ordered. The Retribution unleashed everything it had. Nuclear missiles streaked through space and slammed into the Korthax vessel. The alien ship's shields flared and died. Then the heavy guns opened fire, sending streams of energy that cut the enemy ship in half. The Korthax ship fell toward the planet, burning as it went. The Zelari city below was saved. Commander Steve Davis brought the Warhawk into the battle. Differently, his ship was smaller and faster than the others. He used its speed to dart between the larger Korthax vessels, attacking their weak points. The Warhawk fired a spread of smart missiles that sought out the enemy ship's engines. The missiles found their targets and exploded. 3 Korthax ships suddenly found themselves drifting helplessly in space, their engines destroyed. "Sitting ducks," Steve muttered. Then he ordered his crew to finish them off. Captain Nick Rodriguez and the Thunderstrike showed the Korthax what real firepower looked like. The Thunderstrike was built like a fortress, covered in armor and bristling with weapons. It flew straight at the largest Korthax ship, ignoring the enemy fire that bounced off its thick hull. When the Thunderstrike got close enough, it opened fire with every weapon it had. A massive alien ship shuddered under the attack. Its shields collapsed. Its hull cracked. Then it broke apart like a toy. Warlord Thax could not believe what he was seeing. His fleet was being torn apart by just 4 human ships. How is this possible? All ships concentrate fire on the humans. He roared, "Destroy them now." But the human ships would not stay still long enough to be destroyed. They moved like living things, twisting and turning through space. When the Korthax ships tried to surround them, the humans broke through the trap and attacked from behind. On the planet below, the Zelari huddled in caves and ruined buildings. They had been hiding for months, watching their world burn. Now they looked up at the sky and saw something they had never expected to see. The human ships were winning. Elder Zephyr was the leader of the surviving Zelari. He was an old creature with silver fur and large, intelligent eyes. He had led his people for 50 years, always through peaceful means. Now he watched the battle in the sky with amazement. "Who are these humans?" he asked his advisors. "They fight like demons. They fight like predators," said another Zelari. "But they came to help us. Why would such violent creatures risk their lives for us?" Zephyr had no answer. He had studied many species in his long life, but humans were new to the galaxy. All he knew was that they were considered dangerous by the other species. Now he was seeing why. The human ships continued their attack. They targeted the Korthax vessels that were carrying Zelari prisoners. These ships were heavily armed, but they were not built for fighting. They were built for carrying cargo. The Vengeance swooped down on one of the slave ships. Its guns fired precisely, destroying the ship's weapons, but leaving its hull intact. Then Marines and small attack ships swarmed over the disabled vessel. "This is Sergeant Mike Johnson," came a voice over the radio. "We're boarding the slave ship. Lots of prisoners aboard. We'll have them free in a few minutes." The same scene played out across the battle. The human ships worked together like they had been fighting as a team for years. They protected each other, covered each other's attacks, and shared targets. Korthax fleet was falling apart. Ships that had seemed invincible were now burning wrecks. The mighty empire that had conquered so many worlds was being destroyed by 4 human vessels. Warlord Thax finally understood the truth. These humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were apex predators from a world that had made them into perfect killers. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships, retreat now." But it was too late. The human ships had spread out to surround the Korthax fleet. There was no escape. "No one leaves," Jake Morrison said quietly. "Not after what they've done here." The battle for the Kepler 442 system was about to end, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. The battle in space was almost over, but the real work was just beginning. Colonel Tony Williams watched from the bridge of the Retribution as his Marines prepared for the drop to the planet's surface. The Korthax had thousands of soldiers on the ground, and they were still killing Zelari civilians. "Listen up, Marines," Tony said into his communicator. "We're going down to clean up this mess. The Korthax have been torturing and killing innocent people for months. They've shown no mercy, so we're not going to show them any either." The Marine dropships launched from the human vessels. These were small, fast craft designed to get through enemy fire and land troops safely. The ships were piloted by men and women who had learned to fly in Earth's worst weather. Lieutenant Carol Hayes piloted the lead dropship. She had grown up in the mountains of Colorado, where a wrong turn could mean death. Now she guided her ship through the burning atmosphere of an alien world, dodging debris and enemy fire. "Hang on, Marines," she called to her passengers. "We're going in hot." The dropship shook as Korthax anti-aircraft guns fired at it. Carol twisted the ship left and right, making it a hard target to hit. Behind her, Sergeant Lisa Hayes, no relation, and her squad of Marines checked their weapons one more time. Lisa had joined the Marines after growing up in the slums of Detroit. She had learned to fight on Earth's meanest streets. Now she was about to fight aliens on a world far from home. Remember, Lisa told her squad, the Korthax are bigger and stronger than humans. But they're slow, and they're not used to fighting. People who fight back use your speed and your brains. The dropship hit the ground hard. The rear door opened, and the Marines poured out. They found themselves in what had once been a beautiful Zelari city. Now it was ruins and rubble, with fires burning everywhere. A group of Korthax soldiers was herding Zelari prisoners toward a transport ship. The aliens were twice the size of humans, with thick armor and powerful weapons. They had been having an easy time with the peaceful Zelari. They were about to learn the humans were not peaceful. Target the guards, Lisa ordered. Free the prisoners. The Marines opened fire. Their weapons had been designed to work in Earth's harsh conditions. They were reliable, accurate, and deadly. The Korthax soldiers fell before they could even raise. Their guns. One Korthax warrior managed to get his weapon up. He was a veteran of many conquests, confident in his superiority. He aimed at Lisa, sure that one shot would kill the small human female. Lisa was faster. She rolled to the side as the alien weapon fired. Then she came up shooting. Her rifle sent a burst of bullets into the Korthax warrior's chest. The alien staggered backward and fell. Prisoners secured, Lisa reported, moving to the next target. All across the planet, the same scene played out. Human Marines hit the ground running, attacking Korthax positions with speed and violence. The aliens had been expecting to fight peaceful Zelari. Instead, they faced soldiers who had been trained. On the most dangerous world in the galaxy, Sergeant Bob Miller led his squad through the ruins of a Zelari school. The Korthax had been using it as a prison camp. Bob had been a police officer in Chicago before joining the Marines. He had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. Now he was seeing what aliens could do. They're keeping prisoners in the basement, one of his Marines reported. About 50 Zelari, mostly children. Bob's face went hard. He had children of his own back on Earth. The thought of anyone hurting kids made him see red. Stack up on the door, he ordered. We're going in fast and hard. The Marines kicked down the door and rushed into the basement. The Korthax guards reached for their weapons, but they were too slow. Earth's gravity was stronger than most worlds. It had made humans faster, stronger, and more coordinated than most aliens. The guards died in seconds. The Zelari prisoners cowered in the corner, terrified of the armored humans. They had been tortured for so long that they feared everyone. It's okay, Bob said gently, taking off his helmet so they could see his face. We're here to help. You're safe now. The Zelari children looked up at him with huge eyes. They had never seen a human before, but they could tell that this strange creature was trying to help them. Meanwhile, the Korthax ground commander was trying to rally his forces. General Vorthak had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. He had never faced an enemy like this. His soldiers were panicking, reporting that the humans fought like wild animals. Stand and fight, Vorthak roared. They're just mammals. Kill them. But his soldiers were discovering that these mammals were more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. The humans moved through the ruins like ghosts, appearing suddenly to attack, and then disappearing again. Captain Danny Clark led a special forces team into the Korthax command center. Danny had been a Navy SEAL before joining the Space Marines. He knew how to fight in any environment, under any conditions. The Korthax had set up their headquarters in what had been a Zelari museum. Now it was full of alien computers and communication equipment. Danny's team moved through the building like shadows, taking out guards silently. They reached the command center to find General Vorthik screaming orders at his remaining officers. The alien general was huge, even by Korthak's standards. His armor was covered in decorations from his many victories. "Drop your weapons," Danny ordered, his rifle trained on the general. Vorthik laughed. "You think you can threaten me, little human? I have killed thousands of your kind's enemies." "You haven't killed any of our kind," Danny said quietly. "That's your mistake." The general reached for his weapon. Danny shot him 3 times in the chest. The mighty conqueror fell to the floor, his armor cracked and smoking. "Command center secured," Danny reported. "Enemy general is down." The battle for the planet was turning into a rout. The Korthak soldiers were brave, but they were not prepared for the fury of human warriors. These humans fought with a savagery that the aliens had never seen before. The Korthaks had conquered many worlds, but they had always fought peaceful species. They had never faced predators from a death world. They had never fought creatures that had been forged by millions of years of violence and struggled out as the day wore on. The Korthaks' resistance crumbled. Their ships in orbit were destroyed. Their armies on the ground were scattered. The mighty empire that had seemed unstoppable was being crushed by a handful of human vessels dot in the ruins of the Zalari capital. Elder Zephyr watched human marines leading Korthak's prisoners away. The humans were efficient and professional, but Zephyr could see the anger in their eyes. They had seen what the Korthaks had done to his people. "Why?" Zephyr asked Captain Morrison, who had come down to the surface. "Why did you risk everything? To help us? We are nothing to your people." Morrison looked at the old Zalari leader. "Because it was the right thing to do. Where we come from, you protect those who can't protect themselves. It doesn't matter if they're human or alien." Zephyr nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand these strange, violent creatures who had saved his people. They were predators? Yes, but they were predators with honor. The cleanup continued through the night. Human marines swept through every building, every tunnel, every hiding place. They found Korthak soldiers and took them prisoner. They found Zalari survivors and led them to safety. By dawn, the planet was free. The Korthak's empire's invasion force was destroyed. The Zalari were safe, but the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was no longer content to hide in the shadows. The Deathworlders had announced their presence with fire and fury, and they were just getting started. The battle for the Kepler 442 system was over. The last Korthak ship had been destroyed 3 hours ago. Not a single alien vessel escaped to carry word of their defeat back to the Empire. The human fleet had made sure of that. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of the Zalari capital city. Around him, human marines worked to clear rubble and help survivors. The fox-like Zalari moved carefully around the human soldiers, still afraid of these strange creatures who had saved them. Elder Zephyr approached Morrison slowly. The old Zalari leader's silver fur was dirty, and his robes were torn. He had been hiding in underground tunnels for months, watching his people die. "Captain Morrison," Zephyr said in careful English, "I must ask you something. Your people, they fought like demons. They showed no mercy to our enemies. Are all humans so frightening?" Morrison thought about the question. He looked around at his Marines, who were gently helping Zalari children find their families. These same soldiers had been killing Korthak's warriors just hours ago. "Only when someone threatens innocent people," Morrison said finally. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to fight back. We learned to be strong. But we also learned to protect those who can't protect themselves." Zephyr nodded slowly. The Korthaks were so confident. They had conquered so many worlds. They thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy. "They were wrong," Morrison said simply. "Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived with the supply ships and Reconstruction crews. Terra Station had sent everything they could spare to help rebuild the Zalari world. Kate walked through the ruins, seeing the damage that months of Korthak's occupation had caused. "How many did we lose?" she asked Colonel Tony Williams. 17 Marines killed in action, Tony reported. 43 wounded. The Korthaks fought hard once they realized they were losing. Kate nodded grimly. "And the Korthaks' casualties?" "All of them," Tony said. "We took some prisoners, but most of them fought to the death. They seemed to think surrender was worse than dying. The human fleet had been thorough. Every Korthak soldier on the planet had been killed or captured. Every Korthak ship in the system had been destroyed. The Empire's invasion force had been wiped out completely. News of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than light. The Galactic Council received reports from their monitoring stations. The Korthak's empire, which had seemed unstoppable, had been crushed by a species most considered primitive. President Angela, foster of the United Earth government, received angry messages from dozens of alien species. They demanded explanations. They threatened sanctions. They accused Earth of starting a galactic war. Angela deleted most of the messages without reading them. She had more important things to worry about, like the fact that 3 more species had sent distress calls to Earth, begging for help against various threats. The galaxy was learning that there were consequences for bullying the weak. The Deathworlders were watching now, and they would not tolerate genocide. Commander Helen Davis finished reading the intelligence reports about the Korthak's empire. What she found made her blood run cold. "Kate," she said to Admiral Sullivan, "you need to see this." Kate read the reports in silence. The Korthak's empire had been planning to expand their attacks. The Zalari were just the beginning. They had target lists that included dozens of peaceful species. They were going to wipe out entire civilizations, Kate said quietly, all for slaves and resources. The Galactic Council knew, Helen added. They had the same intelligence we did. They just chose not to act. Kate made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Send a message to all Earthships. From now on, any distress call from a species under attack gets an immediate response. We're not waiting for Council approval anymore. The message went out to every human ship in space. From the outer colonies to the deepest patrol routes, Earth's captains received the same order. They were to protect the innocent, no matter what. The COS. Captain Amy Turner received the message aboard the Retribution. She was leading a patrol near the Rigel system when the call came in. Another peaceful species was under attack by raiders. "Paul Hands, this is the captain," Amy announced. "We have a distress call from the Aquari system. Set course immediately. Maximum speed." The same scene played out across human space. Ships changed course to answer calls for help. Marines prepared for battle. The galaxy's newest military force was mobilizing to protect the weak. Back on the Zalari homeworld, reconstruction was beginning. Human engineers worked alongside Zalari architects to rebuild the destroyed cities. Human doctors treated wounded Zalari in field hospitals. Human teachers helped Zalari children who had been traumatized by the occupation. Dr. Sarah Kim worked in the main hospital in the capital city. She had volunteered to come to the Zalari world after hearing about the massacre. Now she worked 18-hour days, treating patients who had been tortured by the Korthaks. "Doctor," called Nurse Jenny Walsh. "We have another group of survivors from the northern continent." Sarah looked up from her patient. The Zalari she was treating had been beaten so badly that his bones were broken in a dozen places. But he was alive, and he would recover. "How many?" Sarah asked. 53, Jenny replied. "Mostly children and elderly. They were hiding in caves for 3 months." Sarah nodded and went back to work. Every survivor they found was a victory against the Korthaks. Every life saved was proof that the human intervention had been worth it. The Zalari slowly began to trust their human protectors. At first, they had been terrified of the armored warriors who moved through their cities. But they saw how gently the humans treated their children. They saw how carefully the human doctors worked to heal the wounded. Young Zalari began following human marines around like lost puppies. The children were fascinated by these strange creatures who had saved them. The marines, tough soldiers, who had fought in dozens of battles, found themselves surrounded by alien children wanting to touch their armor and hear stories about Earth. Sergeant Mike Johnson found himself adopted by a group of Zalari orphans. Their parents had been killed in the early days of the invasion. Now they clung to the big Marine like he was their new father. "Tell us about Earth," one of the children asked in broken English. Mike sat down among them, his rifle resting across his knees. "Earth is a dangerous place," he said. "We have storms that can destroy whole cities. We have animals that can kill you with one bite. We have deserts where you can die in a day without water." The children listened with wide eyes. Their own world was peaceful and safe. They could not imagine living in such a place. "But Earth is also beautiful," Mike continued. "We have oceans that stretch to the horizon. We have mountains that touch the sky. We have forests full of life and wonder. It made us strong, but it also made us appreciate peace." One of the older children asked the question that was on all their minds. "Will you stay and protect us?" Mike looked at the hopeful faces around him. He wanted to promise them that humans would always be there to keep them safe. But he knew that was not his decision to make. "We'll stay as long as you need us," he said finally. "And even when we go, we'll be watching. If anyone ever tries to hurt you again, we'll come back." The promise spread through the Zalari population like wildfire. The humans would not abandon them. The Deathworlders would be their guardians. Meanwhile, the political situation in the galaxy was changing rapidly. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every day. Some species demanded that Earth be punished for its unprovoked aggression against the Korthax Empire. Others quietly applauded the human action. Ambassador David Wright represented Earth at the council meetings. He was a former soldier who had become a diplomat, but he had not forgotten how to fight. "The humans committed an act of war," declared the Vorthan representative. "They attacked a sovereign empire without provocation." David stood up slowly. "Without provocation?" The Korthax were committing genocide. They were enslaving entire populations. "If that's not provocation, then I don't know what is." "The proper channels exist for such complaints," the Vorthan insisted. "The council could have handled the situation diplomatically." David laughed harshly. "The council has been handling the Korthax diplomatically for 50 years. How has that worked out? How many species have been wiped out while you talked?" The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. They had failed to protect the weak, and now a new power had emerged to do what they would not. The Nixari representative, a species that had barely escaped Korthax conquest themselves, spoke up. "Perhaps it is time we thanked the humans instead of condemning them. They did what we lacked the courage to do." Support for the human action began to grow. Species that had lived in fear of the Korthax Empire started to speak out. They shared stories of friends and relatives who had disappeared into Korthax slave ships. They talked about the terror of waiting for the Empire's fleets to arrive at their worlds. The council was forced to face an uncomfortable truth. The humans had done in a few hours what the council had failed to do in decades. They had stopped a genocide and saved an entire species. 3 days after the battle, the council voted. By a narrow margin, they invited Earth to join as a full